in Philadelphia, Mississippi.
Welcome in. Good morning. The Out of Bounds Show brought to you by the New York Style Pizza. Sal and Mookie's in the district at Eastover and Sal and Mookie's in Madison. Delicious New York Style pizza, among other wonderful things on the menu at Sal and Mookie's. Good morning. Welcome in. You're listening to ESPN 105.9 The Zone. I'm your host, Bo Bounds. This is the Out of Bounds Show. We welcome in Mike Detillier, WWL Radio TV New Orleans. Mike was at the Manning Passing Academy last week, and it was basically a who's who. Not just the Mannings, but Power 5 quarterbacks, and then, of course, recruits like Arch Manning, among many, many others. Mike, good morning. Let's start with the Power 5 QBs that were there. Obviously, we can't go through all 46 or however many it was, but as far as names that our listeners would know, maybe SEC or national names, what was your takeaway? What did you see?
I thought the most impressive passer there was Keaton Slovis from USC. He really threw the football extremely well. Now, I got to remember, these quarterbacks are not working with their own receivers. They're working with receivers from Southeastern Louisiana, Nicholls State, LSU, Tulane, So it's not, one of those type of deals where, okay, I'm going to bring all my receivers with me. We got to go. Now, Oregon did have a number of receivers here, but that, it's not the norm. I thought Keaton really threw the football well. And we saw him last year, especially late in games, being able to pull games out for the Trojans. He's a tall drink of water. He's thin. He's going to fill out. But I was impressed with his mechanics, his accuracy skills, his timing, with receivers he had never worked with before. And, Bo, that jumped out. And there's always a couple of those guys every year. The other young man was De'Aaron King from Miami of Florida. I thought he threw the football really well. You could see the other guys, because of his movement skills, sort of watch him as he kind of worked around the pocket throwing the football. And I had a long interview with both of them, but with King, one of the things, he brought up was understanding that he's got to throw the football a little bit more accurately from the pocket. And he really looked good. I like Matt Corral. I thought Matt threw the football very well in practice. Take charge guy. You around 15, 16, 17-year-old kids. Their attention span sometimes it's not the longest, And man, he took charge of his unit. I specifically went watch when he was working the Friday morning with his group, and he was a take charge guy. I thought he handled that extremely well. And so I was impressed with him, and he gave me a long interview, and it was, he basically told me what sort of I knew, that early on he had some struggles with the offense, and he got better at it as the season went on for the Rebels, and he's looking forward to a big senior season, and we had Archie, and he said the same. They're going to be explosive. They're going to score some points. Desmond Ridder also from Cincinnati. I think is another guy I'll bring up. He was working a lot with, and you could see with Peyton, working with his footwork. I think sometimes he was throwing the ball maybe a little off balance, and Peyton worked with him quite a bit on his footwork and being more balance-oriented. And the other young man that really stood out to me was Michael Pratt from Tulane. who started as a true freshman last year for the Green Wave. And, Bo, I'm telling you, he's got a chance to be something special. He can hum it. Young man from the Florida area, and comes to Tulane and sort of takes over. And they've changed that offense where they were a run-oriented team, and now they're throwing it a lot because of all the wide receiver talent in the state of Louisiana. And Michael Pratt, he can hum it. Really impressive throwing the football. I got to watch him on Saturday morning quite a bit. We did an interview Friday. It's just trying to catch as many of them as you can because the fields are so spread out. Now, you talk about over 40 counselors, so you got to kind of race around pretty good to find it. Certainly the biggest guy there was Cole Kelly from southeastern Louisiana, who was the FCS Player of the Year. And, man, he's a big man that looks like a defensive end, and that ball's coming out of there hot. So if you're a receiver in Hammond, Louisiana at Southeastern, you better be – well, they were prepared last year. I thought he had a really good season. Coach Selfo did a nice job. He certainly wasn't the same player I had saw when he was at Arkansas. But you're talking about a 6'7" quarterback.
Golly.
Legit. And that ball is coming out of there. Bo, brace yourself because it is coming out of there hot.
Mike Detillier, WWL Radio TV New Orleans. He joins us on the Modelo guest line talking about the Manning Passing Academy. Who does I think Matt Corral could go top 10 next year. I mean, if some of these other cats that went this past year can go, I definitely think Corral can. I think he'll have a monster year. He'll have another I think they'll go to a bowl game. He'll have 13 starts under his belt. Who does he remind you of, Mike? Matt Corral.
I hadn't really thought about that. He's, he's not a real big quarterback, okay? In comparison to, say, you see a Cole Kelly or Desmond Ritter or even Pratt, Slovis. He's got his movement skills are very good. Yeah, you can see that, and it's funny. I guess when you can't do it as well, you always watch the other guy. And it's funny when he was practicing, how the other quarterbacks would watch him and De'Eric King throw off the waggle. I think you're trying to say, okay, man, I wish I could move like that. His movement skills. And, again, you're practicing against air. But he threw the football very accurately. He plays the game with a certain confidence that you really like to see in a quarterback. And he certainly has a coach like that, too. But Archie joked around about him was that he had a really rough game where he threw a bunch of interceptions in one game. And he said, "You still didn't break my record, kid." Because Archie was, man, I think it was 6, he told me, against Tennessee one year that he threw. But, you could tell he's got an it factor about him in his ability to make something happen on the field. And he said it clicked for him about midseason, that everything started to click, what Lane was trying to teach and the type offense. But he said, it was difficult at first, and I get it. I really do. I understand where he was coming from and what they were looking for, the type of reads, everything else. And he said, I'm much more familiar with it now, so I feel more comfortable in the offense. But his ability to throw off the run and movement left and right, which is a big part of the game today, is much improved, much more improved. And Archie put it best. Sometimes you get colorblind. You throw it to the guy with the wrong jersey. But he said, when you're a gunslinger like what Matt is, that's going to happen. But he's also going to make a lot of big plays.
Yes.
Also going to make a lot. He worked a lot with Eli. You could tell there's some rapport there, with the two guys. And I saw Eli in his group, along with the Indiana quarterback. Eli sort of stayed in that realm and worked a lot with those guys in the Friday morning session, where he spent a lot of time with them, and just sort of, what are you looking at in this sort of, when they play this different defense. And so it was interesting to watch how Eli has become more and more engaged with the younger quarterbacks.
That's cool.
Now, Peyton always was.
Yeah.
Listen, and I told you the story already, because we were standing up on the sidelines one day, and Peyton's got 3 or 4 guys, and he's sort of questioning them about, what's the thing you do the best? What do you like to throw on the field? What gives you the most troubles? And Eli turned to me and he said, look at Peyton. He's becoming a double-knot spy. And I'm like, what? And I heard that before, Beverly Hillbillies, Jethro. He always wanted to be a double-knot spy. And he was like, those guys don't know Peyton's going to use that against them one day. He said, one day he's going to be in a position to use that. And he was sort of siphoning information from them and sort of collecting it in his head. What do you do best? What do you struggle with? And Eli just turned to me and said, I'm just telling you. He said, watch what he does. He does that with all these top quarterbacks. He tries to get them, and, you relax situation. Okay, Peyton's helping me out, but he's also getting information from you that one day he might be in a position to use it against you too.
Interesting. All right, so Corral looked good.
He looked very good. Very good.
I expect him. I mean, Mike, you wouldn't be surprised if he's a first-round pick, would you?
No, I'd put him as a second-round pick today, but it wouldn't surprise me one bit. And I think the one thing with the NFL in watching him is, okay, he's got to cut down on the interceptions, and he knows that. He admitted to me that that's the one thing I think I really have to work on the most is anticipation better. And I think, like any other quarterback, you've got pressures on you to try to make a big play, and also you got a defense that ain't stopping nobody. So you in a track meet every week that you got to score a lot of points. And I think he'll be much better at it this year. Now, I think he's always going to be a bit of a chance taker. I think his makeup as a player is that, Bo, is that he's going to take chances out on the field. But I think he's become a much smarter quarterback in understanding what Lane Kiffin wants him to do and wants him to look for. And that does take a little bit of time. And again, he was very forthright in saying it took me a little while to gather it, and it was difficult. But once he got it, he got it. He talked about that final game. It poured down rain, in Tiger Stadium, and it became a shootout. With him and Max Johnson, and that Jacoby Stevens making a play at the end. He said, he cut right in front of the pass. But man, if you were in that stadium, that rain was coming down. They say it don't rain in Tiger Stadium. Somebody forgot to tell the weatherman that day, because I'm telling you, boy, it was coming down. But he talked about it. We fought. LSU had a lead. They had a lead, and he said we were just fighting to try to win the game at the end. And he said, it didn't work out. And he said, I'm disappointed. We didn't get the W, but he said, my total focus is I'm not worried about records. He said, I'm just worried about wins. And he was very.
All right, let me ask you this, Mike. All right, you've got him as a second round, which is still good. What does he have to do this year that he hasn't done? Or what does he have to do this year to move into a top 15, 20 pick or so in the NFL draft?
Okay, that's not a far run if you're talking about an early second-round pick and moving into the top 10, 15. I think he, along with I, both agree. He's got to cut down on throws that he was forcing last year and interceptions. Because they're going to look at that and say, wait a minute now. You've improved. You saw the accuracy improve uh, from the year before to last year. You saw his accuracy skills. His mechanics and his footwork are much, much better. His ability to read and recognize coverages were better in a year. And so I think the interception thing is because you could tell as soon as I asked him, his eyes sort of lit because he's heard it. That's the one area you have to cut down on. You can't, as Archie put it, you can't be colorblind at times. You can't throw it to the wrong jersey. And like you said, I get it. But Bo, I think we've all seen Matt play enough to know that he's going to take chances out on the field. That's, I think, part of his makeup. And I think what makes him an interesting prospect, he's not a 6'4", 235-pound fireballer. Okay, I had a six. She was 6 years old last year. She could have told me Justin Herbert could play just by taking a look at him.
Right.
My granddaughter could have told me that. But it's to see a guy like Matt who's not this big, tall, rangy guy, but it's what he can do out on the field with his feet to improvise, his quick thinking, and I think, again, you've got a little bit of that in him that he's going to take a chance, and he's going to try to make a big play. And you understand, defensively today, where I don't know if there's any more dominant defenses anymore in college football.
Right.
They're good defenses, but come on, today, all the rules are made for you to move the ball up and down the field. So you're trying to get red zone defense and trying to get turnovers. And that's got to be the area where Ole Miss has got to improve. I think they're going to have a really good team, and I think you talk about a sneaky team on the schedule, it's them.
Yeah, Bama better watch
out,
out, Mike. They get Bama early, and Kiffin already gave them all they wanted last year, and as you said, that defense wasn't any good. They'll be better. They may not be, like you said, world beaters, but they'll automatically move up, 20 spots in the rankings in defense because there's nowhere else to go. But you make a good point.
The other thing, too, is you better get ready to put points on the board.
Yeah.
You better not settle for field goals because Ole Miss is going to score a lot of points. And so it's interesting. I think they're one of the more intriguing teams. When I talk to people across the country about college football, is to watch. Ole Miss is one of them because of the fact you have the gunslinger quarterback. Man, you've got some receivers and a running back. Your offensive line is going to be good. You better strap it on because I'm telling you, they're going to put some points up. And they're going to upset somebody big this year. You can see it.
Yeah, I agree with it and with you. And Ole Miss pulls Bama on October 2nd. Although Bama has to go to Florida September 18th. And that one could be interesting in the second half too. So I think those are two games that they may not lose, but those are two games early that could challenge Alabama. Third week of the season in Gainesville, because I think Florida's bringing back a lot more than people. Everybody's focused on what left.
Well, I think everybody's focusing on Georgia because if there's a team, and I think how many times it's been said that this is Georgia's year, but when you bring in back JT, who didn't come to the camp. He was scheduled to come, but he was delayed. And Archie's either you're all in or you're not going to be here. And so there was a few quarterbacks that weren't able to come here because they had some scheduling delays, and they weren't going to be able to be here the Thursday and the Friday. They would have been able to come the Saturday and the Sunday. And Archie's, that's not fair to the other guys. You got to be all in with this. And so JT wasn't wasn't able to come in. But you take a look at that defense and that big offensive line and the running back core they have. Now, again, what happens at receiver is going to be interesting with Georgia, and how all that works out because of the Pickens injury. But I think so much focus is on Georgia. People aren't watching Florida enough because they say, okay, you lost Trash, you lost Pitts, you lost Tony on the offensive side. The football, you won't be as good. And I don't think they'll be as good. You can't be. You're losing those type players. How much better can they be on defense? Because I thought they were 2 words last year, lousy on defense. I thought that was as misconjointed a defense as I'd seen at Florida in quite some time.
Right.
They really looked lost defensively, especially in the secondary. With the communication, you could see them. They were constantly talking, and it was as though they didn't know what was happening. And you lost a chunk of those guys out of that secondary. It's interesting year for the defensive coordinator there at Florida.
Yeah.
He better get it straight because you feel the sharpness of the guillotine if he doesn't.
Yeah. I thought Mullen was actually going to run Grantham last year. But
I thought he was also.
I think Dan was trying to see if he was going to get a job. And
when he didn't, he had to stay.
Yep. I think that's what happened. So, but do you agree, Mike, that Bama could be challenged? I've only got a minute. Do you agree that Bama could be challenged at Florida September 18th or by Ole Miss October 2nd, early in the year?
I think they'll be more challenged by Ole Miss than Florida.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, obviously Ole Miss has a better quarterback, so they
showed they could last year.
Right. No doubt.
But the people that challenged Florida last year, they're not in the lineup. They're playing in the NFL. Right. So that's the difference. That Ole Miss is bringing back a lot of the guys that challenged them on offense last year. Where with Florida, Trask and Pitts and Tony, they're not there. They're playing in the NFL.
Yeah. We'll leave it there. Mike D. on the Manning Passing Academy, WWL Radio TV New Orleans. And Mike joined us on the Modelo guest line. Have a great week, Mike. Thanks, bud.
Thank you, Bo.
Mike Detillier, at Mike Detillier on Twitter. It's a Taco Tuesday, always brought to you by the delicious, outstanding beer Modelo Especial and Modelo Negra. I had a Modelo Negra yesterday, and it was fantastic. We've got a case of it in that refrigerator over there, and I think Tucker keeps looking at it. You never know. Some of it could disappear. Blake, I do think that there was an adjustment for Matt Corral when he lost Elijah Moore and Kenny Yeboah because they didn't play near as well against LSU or Indiana. Now, there's a lot more time to adjust now, right? But there was an adjustment because you thought they were going to pour it on Indiana during that game, and they kept coming up goose egg as far as, not scoring on possessions. Hour